Everyone in the five-star restaurant stared in disgust. The billionaire's son was screaming, his face red with tears that money couldn't stop. The father looked defeated. His fiancée looked furious. They were seconds away from being kicked out. But then a waitress, who had been invisible all night, stepped forward. She didn't bring the check. She didn't bring the manager. She reached out her hand and whispered 5 words that silenced the entire room. "He just needs a mom." What happened next didn't just save her dinner, it uncovered a scandal that would destroy a dynasty. You won't believe who she really was. The atmosphere inside Liarda, arguably the most pretentious French restaurant in downtown Manhattan, was usually one of hushed whispers and the gentle clinking of silver against bone china. It was the kind of place where a bottle of water cost more than a minimum wage worker earned in an hour. But on this rainy Tuesday evening in November, the silence was shattered by a sound that no amount of money could suppress: the raw, guttural screaming of a 4-year-old boy. Liam Sterling sat at the best table in the house. Table 1, right by the floor-to-ceiling windows overlooking the city lights. Liam was 32, the CEO of Sterling Tech, a man who could negotiate billion-dollar mergers without breaking a sweat. Yet in this moment, looking at his son Noah, he felt completely paralyzed. Noah was thrashing in his high chair, his small fists beating against the pristine white tablecloth. His face was a mask of misery, tears streaming down his cheeks, his wails piercing the sophisticated air of the dining room. "Liam, for God's sake, do something," hissed the woman sitting opposite him. Jessica Vanderel adjusted her diamond choker, her eyes darting around the room to see who was watching. Jessica was a model-turned-socialite, a woman whose Instagram feed was a curated gallery of perfection. A screaming stepson did not fit her aesthetic. "I'm trying, Jessica," Liam said, his voice tight with exhaustion. He reached out to touch Noah's shoulder, but the boy recoiled, screaming louder. "Noah, buddy, please look. We have ice cream coming. Please stop crying." "He's doing this on purpose," Jessica snapped, sipping her Pinot Noir aggressively. "He knows it humiliates me. He's been a brat since the moment you picked me up. He's for Jessica. He's not plotting against you. I don't know what he is. He's just sad." "He's spoiled," she corrected cold-heartedly. "You coddle him because his mother isn't around. If I were his mother, this behavior would have stopped months ago." At the mention of his mother, Noah let out a shriek so high-pitched that a glass actually tipped over at a nearby table. The dining room fell silent, save for the child's cries. The mater d', a man named Claude who prided himself on the restaurant's exclusivity, began marching toward their table with a look of grim determination, watching from the shadows of the kitchen. Service station was Sarah. She was 26. With tired eyes and hair pulled back into a severe bun required by the dress code. Her uniform was slightly too big, hanging off her thin frame. Sarah had been working at Liarda for 3 months, picking up double shifts whenever she could to pay for her small studio apartment in Queens and the legal fees that were slowly drowning her. "Don't do it." "Sarah," whispered Marco, the busboy, noticing Sarah tightening her apron strings. "Claude is already heading over. If you interfere with table 1, you're fired. That's Liam Sterling. 1 complaint from him and you're blacklisted from every restaurant in the city." Sarah looked at the boy. She didn't see a billionaire's heir. She didn't see a spoiled brat. She saw a terrified little boy who was overstimulated, lonely, and desperate for a connection that neither the stressed father nor the icy blonde woman could provide. She felt that familiar ache in her chest, the phantom pain that had been there for 4 years, ever since the hospital incident. The tragedy that had left her hollow. "He's going to kick them out," Sarah whispered. "Look at Claude's face." "Not our problem," Marco said, stacking dirty plates. But it was her problem. Sarah couldn't explain it. The sound of Noah's cry didn't just annoy her. It pulled at her barely healed wounds. It was a cry of abandonment. Claude arrived at the table. "Mr. Sterling," he said, his voice dripping with faux politeness. "I apologize, but we have received several complaints. The noise, it is disturbing the other guests. Perhaps it would be best if I leave?" "Do you know how much I spend here, Claude?" Liam snapped, his eyes flashing. "I do, sir, but Liarda has a reputation for tranquility. Perhaps you could take the child outside until he composes himself. He's not a dog. He's my son." Liam shouted as he stood up, his chair scraping loudly against the floor. Noah sensed the tension immediately. His breathing became frantic, short, panicked gasps between sobs as his face turned a dangerous shade of purple. "Great!" Jessica snapped, throwing her napkin onto the table. "Now everyone is staring at us. This is mortifying. Liam, call the nanny and have her come pick him up. I can't eat like this." "The nanny is off tonight," Liam said, his voice strained. "Jessica, it's just us." It was chaos. The most powerful man in the room was completely helpless. The staff was hostile. The girlfriend was already checking out. Sarah didn't think. She didn't calculate the tip she might lose or the job she might sacrifice. She walked past Marco, past the fuming Claude, and headed straight for table 1. She didn't look at Liam. She didn't look at Jessica. She dropped to her knees beside the high chair, bringing herself eye level with the screaming child. The floor dug painfully into her knees, but she didn't care. "Excuse me," Claude barked, stepping forward. "Sarah, get back to your station." "Wait," Liam said, holding up a hand. Sarah ignored them all. She looked directly into Noah's tear-filled eyes. He was thrashing, his small hands gripping the edge of the table. She didn't speak right away. She simply held his gaze. Her face softened as she let the stress of the dinner rush melt away, leaving only a deep, steady warmth. She reached into her apron pocket and pulled out a simple white napkin. Quickly, deftly, she folded it, triangle, twist, knot. Noah's screams hitched. He blinked, confused by the waitress who was suddenly so close. Sarah lifted the napkin. It was a crude, hastily made rabbit. She made it hop along the edge of the table. "Hello, Noah," she whispered. Her voice was low, melodic, and impossibly calm. It cut through the noise of the restaurant like a bell. Noah sniffled, his chest still heaving. He looked at the rabbit, then back at her. "The rabbit is sad too," Sarah said softly. "He thinks it's too loud in here. He wants to know if you can help him be quiet so he can sleep." Noah stared at her, mesmerized. The screaming stopped, replaced by wet, jagged breaths. Sarah slowly reached out her hand, palm open. She didn't grab him. She waited. "Sarah," Claude hissed. "This is highly unorthodox." "Let her be," Liam said, his voice filled with disbelief. Noah looked at Sarah's hand. Then, his lip trembling, he reached out and grabbed her pinky finger. His grip was surprisingly strong. Sarah smiled, the kind of smile that lit up even the dimmest corner of the room. She gently wiped a tear from his cheek with her thumb. Leaning closer, ignoring the expensive perfume of the woman across the table, she whispered the words that would change everything. "It's okay, little one. You're not bad. You're just tired. You just need a mum." The words hung in the air. Jessica gasped. Liam felt like he'd been punched in the gut. Sarah began to hum. It wasn't a radio song or a nursery rhyme. It was a strange, lilting melody in a minor key, something old, maybe Irish or Scottish. A lullaby that hadn't been heard in the Sterling household for years. As Sarah hummed, Noah's eyes grew heavy. His grip loosened, but he didn't let go. His head drooped. Within 60 seconds, the child who had been screaming loudly enough to shatter glass rested his cheek against Sarah's hand. His breathing evening out into sleep. The silence that followed was heavier than the noise. Sarah slowly stood, her knees cracking softly. She gently freed her hand and adjusted the blanket around Noah's shoulders. Then she turned back to the table. Claude stood open-mouthed. Jessica looked furious. And Liam Sterling was staring at Sarah with an intensity that made her skin prickle. "I apologize for the interruption," Sarah said, slipping back into her professional waitress voice, though her hands trembled slightly. "I'll bring fresh water for the table." She turned to leave. "Wait." She froze. "That song," Liam said, his voice unsteady. "Where did you learn that song?" Sarah turned slowly, clutching her serving tray against her chest like a shield. The adrenaline faded, replaced by the cold realization that she had crossed a massive professional boundary. "The song, sir?" she asked quietly. "It's just something I made up. I hum it sometimes." Liam stood, ignoring Jessica's hand on his arm. He walked around the table, closing the distance between himself and the waitress. Up close, he noticed things he hadn't seen before. Her eyes weren't just brown. They were a deep hazel, flecked with gold, framed by lashes that didn't need mascara. There was a sadness in them that mirrored his own. "You didn't make that up," Liam said, his voice intense. My late wife, used to hum that exact melody to Noah when he was a newborn. I haven't heard it in 4 years. Not since she died." The blood drained from Sarah's face. "I'm sorry, sir. That must be a coincidence. It's a very simple tune." "It's not simple," Liam insisted. "It has a specific bridge, a dip in the notes. You did it exactly the way she did." "Liam, sit down," Jessica snapped, unable to tolerate the attention being on anyone else. She probably heard it on TikTok or something. "You're making a scene." Then she turned on Sarah, pointing a manicured nail at her. "And you overstepped. Touching a customer's child, telling him he needs a mom, that was a direct insult to me. I am effectively his mother." Sarah stiffened. She looked at Jessica, at a woman who saw the child as an accessory. A hurdle to clear before accessing the Sterling fortune. "With all due respect." "Mom," Sarah said, her voice suddenly edged with steel. He was in distress. A child in distress doesn't care about social hierarchies. He needed comfort. "I provided it." "You're a waitress," Jessica scoffed. "You provide bread and water." "Claude, I want this girl fired immediately. She insulted me. She touched the child without permission, and she's upsetting Liam." Claude stepped forward, sweating. He looked between the billionaire and his irate date. The rule was simple. The customer was always right. But the billionaire didn't look angry. He looked bewitched. "Miss Vanderwall," Claude began carefully, "I can certainly assign a different server." "No," Liam interrupted. "She's not going anywhere. And she's certainly not getting fired." He turned back to Sarah and reached into his suit jacket, pulling out a sleek black business card. "What's your name?" Sarah Miller." "Sarah," Liam repeated, testing the name. It sounded plain, ordinary. But nothing about what had just happened was ordinary. "Thank you. You did what I couldn't do." "You calmed him." "He's a sweet boy," Sarah said softly, glancing at the sleeping Noah. "He has kind eyes." "He has his mother's eyes," Liam murmured. "Look, Sarah, I'm sorry about Jessica. Please take this." He handed her the card, then pulled several $500 bills from his wallet and tried to press them into her hand. Sarah stepped back. "No, sir. I can't accept that. Not for helping a child. It's not a tip. It's gratitude." "I can't," she said firmly. "Please, I have to get back to work." She hurried toward the kitchen, her heart pounding against her ribs like a trapped bird. She needed distance from Liam Sterling, from that table, from everything that stirred inside her. In the safety of the kitchen, she leaned against the stainless steel counter, gasping for air. "You okay?" Marco asked, watching her closely. "You look like you saw a ghost." "I think I did," Sarah whispered. She didn't tell Marco the truth. She didn't tell him she hadn't made up that song. She didn't tell him that seeing Noah up close had triggered a memory so sharp it felt like a physical blow. Out in the dining room, the dinner ended abruptly. Liam had lost his appetite. He signaled for the check, ignoring Jessica's complaints about the terrible service and the audacity of the help. As they left, Liam carried the sleeping Noah in his arms. Passing the service station, he looked for Sarah, but she was hiding in the back, scrubbing dishes she didn't need to scrub just to avoid his gaze. Outside, the cool New York night wrapped around them as the driver opened the door of the black SUV. Liam strapped Noah into his car seat. "I'm going to my place tonight," Jessica announced from the curb. "I'm not dealing with you when you're in this mood. You're obsessed with a waitress." "Liam, it's pathetic." "Good night, Jessica," Liam said coldly, getting into the car and shutting the door. As the SUV pulled away, Liam didn't check his phone or glance at the stock market. He looked at his son. Then he looked at the black business card he had tried to give Sarah, now back in his hand after he'd retrieved it from the table, but beneath the napkin rabbit she had folded. He'd found something else. A small silver locket. It must have fallen from her apron pocket when she leaned over. Liam held it up under the passing streetlights. It was cheap, tarnished silver. He hesitated, then pried it open with his thumbnail. His breath caught in his throat. The car seemed to spin. Inside was a tiny, faded photograph. It was of a baby. A newborn. But it wasn't just any baby. On the back of the photo, written in a shaky hand, was a date, October 14th, 2019. Liam stared at it. Then he looked at his sleeping son. Noah was born on October 14th, 2019. "Driver," Liam said, his voice trembling. "Turn the car around. We're going back to the restaurant." "Sir, we just left," the driver said, confused. "I said turn around." Liam roared, but by the time they reached Le Jardin again, the kitchen lights were off. The staff entrance was locked. Sarah Miller had vanished into the night. Liam stood on the sidewalk, rain soaking his expensive suit. Clutching the cheap silver locket in his hand, he made a call. His private investigator, Vince, a man who specialized in digging up things that didn't want to be found. "Vince," Liam said into the phone. "It's Liam. I need you to find someone. A waitress named Sarah Miller. I need everything. Who she is, where she came from, and why she has a picture of my son in her locket." "Consider it done," Vince replied. "What's the angle? Theft? Blackmail?" "No," Liam whispered, looking up at the dark sky. "I think it's something much worse. I think she might be the answer to the question I stopped asking 4 years ago." Morning sunlight hit the cracked pavement of Queens with a harsh, unforgiving glare. Sarah woke up in her basement studio apartment, a converted storage room that always smelled of damp concrete and old pipes. Her heart was racing before her eyes even opened. Her hand flew to her neck. Empty. She sat up, the thin blanket falling away, and frantically searched the nightstand. Then the floor. Then the sheets. She dropped to her knees, sweeping her hands under the bed frame, her breath coming in short, panicked gasps. "No, no, no," she whispered, tears filling her eyes. "Please, God, not that. Take anything else. Take the apartment. Take my job. But not that." The locket was gone. It was the only thing she had left of Toby, the only proof he had existed, if only for a few heartbreaking hours. Inside that cheap silver casing was the photo she had taken with a smuggled phone in the delivery room. Moments before the doctors rushed him away, moments before they told her his heart had stopped, her mind raced back to the restaurant. The chaos. The billionaire. The way she had leaned over the high chair. It must have slipped out then. She grabbed her phone to call Jardin, but her hand froze. She had walked out on a shift. She had embarrassed the manager. If she went back, Claude wouldn't just fire her, he would humiliate her. And worse. What if Liam Sterling had found it? A sharp knock at the door made her jump. Sarah froze. No one knocked on her door. Her landlord yelled down the stairs. She had no friends who visited. The knock came again, heavy, firm, authoritative. She pulled on a robe, hands shaking as she tied the sash, and crept toward the door. There was no peephole. Who is it? She called, her voice trembling. Sarah Miller, a deep voice replied. My name is Liam Sterling. We met last night. Please open the door. The blood drained from her face. The billionaire was in Queens. He had found her. But why? Rich men didn't hunt down waitresses to return lost jewelry. They sent assistants, unless he was angry. Unless he was going to sue her for touching his son. She undid the chain and cracked the door. Open. Liam Sterling stood in the dim hallway, looking wildly out of place in a charcoal Italian suit that cost more than the entire building. Behind him stood a large man with a shaved head. Security. Liam looked exhausted. His eyes were red-rimmed, like he hadn't slept. In his hand, he held the silver locket. Sarah gasped and instinctively reached for it. You found it. Liam pulled his hand back slightly. May I come in? It wasn't really a question. Sarah stepped aside, letting them into her tiny sanctuary. The security guard stayed by the door, scanning the cramped room, the charcoal sketches of babies on the walls, the single mattress, the lack of furniture, the poverty, the struggle. Liam took it all in, but his focus returned to Sarah. I had my private investigator run a background check on you last night, he said coldly. It wasn't hard. You were an art student at NYU. You dropped out 4 years ago. No criminal record. No real debt except medical bills. You're a ghost. Is that why you're here? Sarah snapped, her defensiveness rising to cover her fear. To tell me my credit score? Can I please have my locket back? This locket? Liam said, lifting it by the chain. The locket swung between them like a pendulum. Who was the baby in the picture? Liam asked. That's none of your business. It became my business when I saw the date on the back. Liam stepped closer. The small room suddenly felt suffocating. October 14th, 2019, St. Jude's Hospital. That's the day my son Noah was born, in that same hospital. Sarah felt the room spin. So? It's a big hospital. Lots of babies are born on the same day. Not like this, Liam said quietly. I remember that night. A storm knocked out the power grid for 3 blocks. The generators kicked in. It was chaos. He swallowed hard. My wife, Catherine, was in room 401. It was a difficult labor. She didn't make it. For a moment, the grief cracked through his carefully controlled exterior. I remember hearing a woman screaming in the room next door. He continued, his eyes never leaving Sarah. Room 402. The nurses were running back and forth between our rooms. They said the woman in 402 was having an emergency C-section. They said she was young and alone. Sarah wrapped her arms around herself, shivering despite the thick, humid air. Stop it. Was that you, Sarah? Give me the locket. She cried, lunging forward. Liam caught her wrist, gentle but firm. Tell me, was that you? Yes, Sarah sobbed as her legs gave out. She collapsed onto the edge of the mattress, burying her face in her hands. Yes, it was me. I was 22. I was alone. His father left the moment he saw the second line on the test. She looked up, broken. I wanted him. I wanted my Toby so badly. Liam knelt down, just as she had knelt beside his son the night before. What happened to Toby? They took him away, Sarah whispered, her voice cracking. They said he was in distress. They sedated me. When I woke up, a doctor came in, Dr. Holloway. He told me my baby's heart hadn't formed properly. He said he died in the incubator an hour after birth. Her tears spilled freely. They didn't even let me hold him. They said it would be too traumatic. She looked up at Liam, desperate. This picture, the nurse took it right when he came out. He was crying. He was alive. Her voice broke. And then he was gone. Liam stared at the photograph inside the locket, then back at Sarah. A cold chill colder than a queen's winter settled into his bones. "Sarah," he said slowly, "when my son Noah was born, the doctors told me he was in critical condition. They rushed him straight to the NICU. I didn't see him for 12 hours. Sarah's breathing grew shallow. When they finally brought him to me," Liam continued, "he was healthy. They called it a miracle. What are you saying?" Sarah whispered, wiping her eyes. "I'm saying Noah has a small birthmark behind his left ear," Liam said. "Shaped like a crescent moon." Sarah stopped breathing. Her hands flew to her mouth to muffle a scream. "Toby," she choked out. "Toby had that mark on the ultrasound. The tech joked about it. She said he was marked by the moon." The silence in the room was absolute. The security guard by the door shifted uncomfortably. Liam stood up. His grief hardened into something terrifyingly focused. He wasn't the shattered widower anymore. He was the CEO, the man who destroyed competitors for sport, and now his target wasn't a rival company. It was the truth. "Pack a bag," Liam said. "What?" "Pack a bag, Sarah. You can't stay here. I have a job. I have a life. You have a rat-infested basement and a minimum-wage job that treats you like dirt." Liam cut her off. "And you might have a son who is living in my house, being raised by a woman who hates him." Sarah stood shaking. "You think Noah is Toby?" "I don't know," Liam admitted. "But I do know this: Dr. Holloway was fired 6 months after Noah was born for falsifying records. I never thought to look into it until today," Liam said quietly. "And I know this: when you touched Noah last night, he stopped crying for the first time in months. He knew you." He held out the locket. Sarah took it, clutching it tightly to her chest. "I want to hire you," Liam continued. "Officially. As Noah's private caregiver. You'll live in the mansion. The pay is $10,000 a month." "I don't want your money," Sarah said fiercely. "Then do it for the boy," Liam replied. "If he's yours, we need to prove it. And to prove it, I need you close. I need to get a DNA sample without alerting the hospital or the press." He hesitated, then added, "And I need to protect him from Jessica." "Jessica?" "My fiancée," Liam said, grimacing. "She's pushing to send Noah to a boarding school in Switzerland next week. She says he's defective." Sarah's eyes flared. The fear drained away, replaced by something primal, a mother's instinct buried for 4 long years. "Switzerland?" She spat. "Over my dead body." She went to the closet and pulled out a battered duffel bag. The Sterling estate in the Hamptons was less a home and more a fortress. High stone walls, iron gates, acres of manicured lawns that looked untouched by human feet. Sarah sat in the back of the limousine, watching the scenery blur past. She had changed into her best clothes, a simple navy blouse and black slacks, but still felt painfully underdressed. "We're here," Liam said as the car crunched over the gravel driveway. When the front doors opened, the staff stood lined up, a butler, 2 maids, and a chef. They stared at Sarah with confusion. She didn't resemble the Sterling's usual nannies, neither matronly women in starched uniforms nor young, highly educated au pairs who spoke 3 languages. "This is Sarah," Liam announced. "She's the new head of child welfare for Noah. Her word regarding the boy is law. Is that clear?" "Yes, Mr. Sterling," they replied in unison. "Where is Noah?" "In the nursery, sir. Miss Vannel is with him." Liam's jaw tightened. "Come with me, Sarah." They climbed the grand marble staircase. The house felt cold. The art on the walls was sharp and abstract. There were no family photos. No toys scattered on the floor. As they neared the nursery, Jessica's voice drifted down the hall. It wasn't shouting, but it dripped with venom. Stop sniveling. You're pathetic. Look at this mess you made with the paint. Your father is going to be so disappointed in you. Sarah pushed past Liam and flung the door open. Noah sat on the floor, covered in blue finger paint. He wasn't crying. He was staring blankly at the floor, completely dissociated. Jessica stood over him, gripping a wet wipe like a weapon, scrubbing his hands so hard his skin was turning red. Stop it! Sarah shouted. Jessica spun around, eyes widening. You the waitress. What on earth is she doing here, Liam? She works here now, Liam said calmly, stepping inside. Step away from him, Jessica. You hired the waitress who humiliated me? Jessica laughed a sharp, brittle sound. This is a joke, right? She probably has lice. Sarah ignored her. She crossed the room and sat down on the expensive rug, heedless of the paint. Hi, Noah, she whispered. The boy looked up. His eyes, dull moments ago, flickered with recognition. He tilted his head. Rabbit. He whispered. It was the first clear word Liam had heard him speak in 2 weeks. Sarah smiled, tears burning her eyes. She grabbed a clean corner of paper from the floor and folded it quickly. A triangle. A twist. A knot. A rabbit. The rabbit is back, she said softly. And look, he's blue now. He likes the paint. Noah reached out and touched the paper rabbit. Then he looked at Sarah's hand. Slowly, he placed his small, paint-covered hand into hers. Mama, he breathed. The air left the room. Jessica dropped the wet wipes. What did he just say? He called her Mama, Liam whispered, awe filling his voice. He's confused. Jessica shrieked. He's a child. He calls the cat Mama too. This is ridiculous. I want her out of my house. It's my house, Jessica, Liam said coldly. And Sarah stays. Jessica narrowed her eyes, glancing between them. She was a woman who had clawed her way into high society, and she wasn't about to let a waitress from Queens derail her marriage into the sterling fortune. Fine, she said at last, smoothing her dress. But when she steals the silverware, don't come crying to me. She stormed out, her heels snapping sharply against the hardwood floor. Over the next 3 days, the house transformed. Sarah didn't just watch Noah. She brought him back to life. She took him into the garden, letting him dig in the dirt, something Jessica had strictly forbidden. She sang the lullaby to him every night. And Liam found himself coming home early from the office, just to watch them on the security monitors. The boy who once screamed for hours was now laughing. But Sarah was on a mission. She needed to sample anything. A hair follicle. A nail clipping. Proof. On the 3rd night, after Noah had fallen asleep, she gently plucked a single hair from his pillow. She placed it into a small plastic bag she had brought with her. She already had one of her own hairs ready. She was heading to hide the samples when she ran into Jessica in the hallway. Jessica stood there in a silk robe, a glass of wine in her hand, blocking Sarah's path. You think you've won, don't you? Jessica sneered. You think because you can fold napkins and sing peasant songs, you're going to replace me? I'm not interested in your fiancé, Jessica, Sarah said calmly. I'm just doing my job. Oh, I know exactly what you're interested in, Jessica spat. You're a gold digger. I looked up your family. Your mother was a cleaner. Your father was a drunk. Trash breeds trash. Get out of my way. I don't think so, Jessica smirked. You see, Sarah, I know about the locket. Liam talks in his sleep. He told me all about your little dead baby delusion. Sarah froze. It's sad, really, Jessica continued, stepping closer, her breath reeking of expensive Merlot. But here's the reality check. Even if that brat was yours, which is medically impossible, do you really think the world would let you have him? She smiled cruelly. Liam Sterling is a king. You are a servant. Courts don't give princes to paupers. "We'll see," Sarah said quietly, pushing past her. "Yes," Jessica whispered to herself as Sarah walked away. "We certainly will." The next morning, chaos erupted. Sarah was in the kitchen preparing Noah's breakfast when two police officers walked in, Jessica right behind them. Looking triumphant. "That's her," Jessica said, pointing a perfectly manicured finger at Sarah. "That's the thief. What is going on?" Liam's voice boomed from the doorway. He was dressed for work, briefcase in hand. "I found it, Liam," Jessica cried, rushing toward him. "My grandmother's emerald ring, the one you insured for $200,000. It was missing from my vanity this morning." Liam turned to Sarah. Sarah stood frozen by the stove, her hands raised in confusion. "Officer." "Check her bag," Jessica commanded. "Ma'am," one officer asked cautiously, "do we have your permission?" "I didn't take anything," Sarah said desperately. "Check it." "Go ahead." The officer picked up Sarah's canvas tote from the counter and emptied it. A spare uniform. A book. A AIRBRUSH. And a velvet pouch. The officer opened it. Inside lay a massive emerald ring, glittering under the kitchen lights. Sarah gasped. "No, I've never seen that before." "She planted it." Sarah cried. "Planted it?" Jessica gasped dramatically. "Liam, do you hear her? She's a pathological liar. First she claims your son is hers, and now she's accusing me of framing her." Liam stared at the ring, then at Sarah. His expression twisted with pain. The evidence was undeniable. "Liam, please," Sarah begged, panic flooding her eyes. "You have to believe me. I don't care about jewelry. I only care about Noah." "Officer," Jessica said smugly. "Arrest her." The officer stepped forward, pulling out handcuffs. "Sarah Miller, turn around and place your hands behind your back." "Liam!" Sarah cried as the cold metal snapped around her wrists. Liam didn't move. He looked at Jessica, her eyes shining with predatory triumph. Then he looked at Sarah, sobbing as she was pulled away. "Wait," Liam said. The room fell silent. "Take the ring," Liam told the officer. "But leave the girl." "Excuse me?" Jessica shrieked. "Liam, she stole from me." "I don't believe she did," Liam said quietly. He stepped toward Sarah and nodded to the officer. "Sir," the officer said hesitantly, "the evidence is right here." "I said let her go," Liam replied evenly. "If there are charges, I'm dropping them. It's my house. My insurance." After a moment, the officer unlocked the cuffs. Sarah rubbed her wrists, staring at Liam in disbelief. "Why?" Jessica hissed, her face turning a furious red. "Why are you protecting this criminal?" "Because," Liam said, turning slowly to face his fiancée, his eyes cold as ice. "I reviewed the hallway security footage before I came downstairs." Jessica froze. "I saw you enter the kitchen at 2 a.m., Jessica," Liam continued, "with the velvet pouch in your hand." The color drained from her face. "Get out," Liam said. "Liam, baby, I said get out. You have 1 hour to pack your things. If you're not gone, I'll have you arrested for filing a false police report." Jessica screamed in rage, hurling her wine glass against the wall. As it shattered, it shattered, red liquid sliding down the white wall like blood. Jessica stormed out, cursing them both. The police officers left soon after. Awkward and apologetic. Sarah stood frozen in the kitchen, trembling. Liam walked over to her. "Are you okay?" he asked gently. You checked the cameras?" Sarah whispered. Liam lowered his voice. "I didn't check the cameras. There are no cameras in the hallway." Sarah's eyes widened. "You lied." "I bluffed," Liam admitted. "I know a liar when I see one, and I know you didn't take that ring." He reached into his pocket, because while everyone was distracted, I was doing this. He held up a small plastic baggie. Inside were 2 strands of hair, one from Noah, one from Sarah. Sarah sucked in a breath. I found it on your dresser when I went to look for you this morning, Liam said. You're planning to run a DNA test? Yes, Sarah whispered. Good, Liam said. But we're not sending it to a lab. Sarah looked up sharply. We're going straight to the source. Get Noah ready. We're going to visit Dr. Holloway. Sarah's stomach dropped. He was fired, remember? Liam continued, his voice darkening. I know where he lives. And he's going to tell us exactly what happened in that delivery room 4 years ago. He paused, even if I have to beat it out of him. The drive to Dr. Marcus Holloway's house took them into the forgotten underbelly of the city. Once, he had been a celebrated obstetrician with a Park Avenue penthouse. Now he lived in a crumbling Victorian neighborhood long past its prime, the sky bruised purple above them, heavy with an oncoming storm that matched the tension inside the limousine. Noah sat safely buckled in the back, playing with his paper rabbit, completely unaware that the 2 adults beside him were about to tear the world apart to discover who he really was. What if he denies it? Sarah asked. Her hands were clenched so tightly in her lap, her knuckles were white. What if he slams the door in our faces? He won't, Liam said, his eyes locked on the road. The billionaire charm was gone. In its place was something cold, focused, predatory. He lost his license for falsifying records. He's a man with secrets, and men with secrets are always afraid. They pulled up in front of the house. It loomed over them. Paint peeling, ivy crawling up the walls and choking the windows. Liam leaned forward. Keep the engine running, he told the driver. Doors locked. Yes, Mr. Sterling. Stay here with Noah, Liam added. If anyone other than me or Sarah approaches the car, drive away. Don't stop. Yes, sir. Liam and Sarah walked up the cracked concrete path. A wave of nausea hit. Sarah. This man, this doctor had held her life in his hands 4 years ago. He was the one who had told her that Toby was dead. He was the architect of her nightmare. Liam didn't knock. He slammed his fist against the heavy oak door. Holloway. Open up. Silence. Then shuffling footsteps. A curtain twitched. I know you're in there, Marcus. Liam shouted. Open the door, or I'll have my security team rip it off the hinges. The deadbolt slid back with a rusty screech. The door creaked open. Dr. Holloway stood there gaunt, unshaven, wrapped in a stained cardigan. He looked like a ghost of the man he once was. The smell of stale whiskey poured out into the hall. He squinted, then froze when he recognized Liam. Mr. Sterling, he croaked. I wasn't expecting. Save it, Liam snapped, pushing past him and pulling Sarah inside. We need to talk about October 14th, 2019. Holloway's face drained of color. He glanced at Sarah, and for a split second, something flickered in his eyes. Recognition. Maybe guilt. I don't know who this woman is, Holloway stammered, backing away. I have nothing to say to you. My lawyers aren't here, Liam said quietly. And neither is your medical license. He stepped closer. But I am. And I have enough money to bury you in lawsuits until your grandchildren are still paying them off. He reached into his pocket and pulled out the silver locket, holding it up inches from the doctor's face. Or, Liam continued, you can tell me the truth. He opened the locket. Do you recognize this baby, doctor? Holloway stared at the photo. His hands began to shake. Please, he whispered. It was a long time ago. It was 4 years ago. Sarah screamed, her voice echoing through the empty house. You told me my baby died. You told me his heart stopped. Was that a lie? Holloway slumped into a dusty armchair and buried his face in his hands. The silence stretched heavy, suffocating. Catherine. Your wife, Holloway began, his voice muffled. She was in distress. The baby, the Sterling heir. He was stillborn, Liam. The cord was wrapped around his neck 3 times. There was nothing I could do. He was gone before he ever took a breath. Liam closed his eyes. A single tear slipped free. He had always feared it, but hearing it confirmed was like a fresh knife to the heart. So my son died. Yes, Holloway whispered, but the hospital, Holloway continued. The new wing. The grant money your father had promised, it depended on a successful delivery. The board was pressuring me. The press was already outside. If the Sterling baby died, the funding would be pulled. My career would be over. So what did you do? Liam roared. Room 402. Holloway lifted a shaking finger toward Sarah. She was young, alone, uninsured, no family in the waiting room. And she had a healthy baby boy. His voice cracked. It was a crime of opportunity. I swapped the tags. Sarah let out a guttural sob and collapsed to her knees. You stole him, she cried. You stole my Toby. I gave him a better life, Holloway said weakly. I gave him to a billionaire. And I gave you closure. I thought I was solving a problem. You played God, Sarah screamed. Lunging for him, Liam caught her just in time, holding her back as she thrashed and screamed with pure, unfiltered rage. You told me I killed him, Sarah sobbed against Liam's chest. For 4 years, I thought my body failed him. I thought I wasn't good enough to keep my baby alive. And you sold him for a hospital wing. Liam stared at the broken man in the chair with a disgust deeper than anger. You didn't give him a better life, Liam said coldly. You gave him a grieving father who couldn't connect with him because he wasn't his. You stole his mother's milk, her voice, her love. You created a tragedy to save your reputation. I have the records, Holloway whispered, defeated. The real ones. They're in the safe. I kept them. Just in case. Get them, Liam ordered. Now 10 minutes later. They walked out of the house with a leather-bound folder containing undeniable proof original birth certificates, notes documenting the switch, and DNA markers. Sarah clutched the folder to her chest like a shield. He's mine, Liam, she whispered. He's really mine. Liam looked at her, his expression unreadable. He's yours, he said. But he's also the boy I've raised for 4 years. The boy I love. They reached the car. Sarah looked through the window at Noah, sleeping peacefully. I'm not going to take him away from you, she whispered. I saw how you look at him. You're his father, maybe not by blood, but by every measure that matters. Liam stared at her, stunned by her grace. And you're his mother, he said quietly. We'll figure this out. But as they drove back toward the estate, believing the worst was behind them, they had no idea the real war was just beginning. Jessica had not left quietly. She had made a call. The Sterling estate was lit up not with warm lights, but with flashing red and blue. Government vehicles filled the driveway. 2 black sedans blocked their path. On the porch, flanked by stern-faced agents, stood Jessica. A triumphant smirk stretched across her face. Child Protective Services, Liam muttered, slamming the car into park before they could even unbuckle Noah. Agent Miller knocked on the window. Mr. Sterling, Miss Miller. We received a credible report regarding the illegal procurement of a minor and potential endangerment. This is a lie, Sarah cried, jumping out and placing herself in front of Noah's door. I made the call, Jessica announced, stepping forward, venom dripping from her voice. I told them everything, Liam. How you picked up a delusional waitress and decided to play house. How the child's identity is unverified. The state can't leave a child in a house of madness. You vindictive, Liam surged forward. But security restrained him. We are taking emergency custody of the child until paternity is established, Agent Miller said flatly. Do not make this difficult. The next minutes blurred into pure nightmare. Officers dragged a screaming Sarah away from the car. Noah woke up, terrified by the lights and strangers. Daddy! Sarah! he screamed, reaching out as they strapped him into the government vehicle. "Mama!" The word tore through the night. Sarah collapsed onto the gravel as the door slammed shut. They stood helplessly as the car sped away with their son. Jessica leaned toward Liam, exhaling smoke into the cool air. "That's what happens," she whispered. "Nobody humiliates Jessica Vanderwall." Liam turned to her, his eyes so cold they could freeze hell itself. "Get off my property," he said quietly. "If you're not gone in 5 minutes, I will destroy you." For the first time, Jessica understood the danger was real. She didn't argue. She fled into the night. The next 48 hours were pure torture: lawyers, DNA swabs, emergency filings, and nonstop media chaos. The story had leaked everywhere. Billionaire's baby stolen. Waitress claims the child is hers. Sarah spent her nights in the empty nursery, clutching the paper rabbit, while Liam burned through his fortune. Hiring the most ruthless legal team in New York. Thursday morning arrived. The Manhattan family court was surrounded by paparazzi. Inside, the air felt heavy, suffocating. The state prosecutor, hungry for a high-profile win, argued that because the original birth certificate had been falsified, Noah, legally unidentified, should become a ward of the state. "A billionaire and a waitress are not a family," she said. "They are strangers bound by a crime." Sarah couldn't stay silent. She stood, ignoring her lawyer's frantic whisper. "Your Honor," she said, her voice trembling but steady enough to carry. 4 years ago, my son was stolen from my arms. I mourned him every single day. Mr. Sterling didn't know the truth. He's a victim too. But he loves that boy." She swallowed hard. "We are the only 2 people in this world who love Noah more than life itself. Please don't punish a confused little boy for a doctor's crime. He doesn't need the state. He needs his parents." The courtroom went completely still. The judge adjusted her glasses and looked down at the file. "The DNA results are conclusive," she said. "Sarah Miller is the biological mother. Furthermore, Liam Sterling has acted as the primary caregiver for 4 years." She paused. "Biology gives in to her. Love gives in to you." The gavel struck. Immediate joint custody is awarded to Miss Miller and Mr. Sterling. Case closed. Sarah collapsed into Liam's arms, tears finally pouring free. They had won. The reunion at the Child Services Center became front-page news for weeks. Captured from a long-distance lens, Sarah running across the tarmac, Noah breaking free from the social worker and sprinting toward her, Liam dropping to his knees to wrap his arms around them both. They went home. Not to a house filled with employees and cold art, but to a home. There was only one loose end left, and karma, as always, collected its debts. Jessica Vanderwall was dropped by her agency. The scandal, filing a false report and documented cruelty toward a child, went viral after a leaked audio recording from the Sterling estate security system mysteriously found its way to TMZ. She became a pariah. No galas, no brand deals. She was last seen screaming at a barista in a jagged rage caught on video and turned into a global meme. Dr. Holloway pleaded guilty to kidnapping, fraud, and medical malpractice. He was sentenced to 20 years in federal prison. The Sterling wing at the hospital was renamed the Toby and Noah Center for Pediatric Care, dedicated to helping underprivileged mothers and infants. 6 months later, spring arrived in New York. The air was crisp, scented with blooming tulips. Le Jardin buzzed as always, but table 1 was reserved. Liam sat there looking more relaxed than he had in years. No tie. Across from him sat Sarah, no waitress uniform. She wore an elegant emerald dress that brought out the gold in her eyes. Between them, in a booster seat, sat Noah, coloring on the paper tablecloth, drawing a family of rabbits. "He's happy," Liam said, reaching across the table to take Sarah's hand. "He is," she smiled, lacing her fingers with his. "He asked me this morning if he could call you Dad again." I told him he never had to stop, and you? Liam asked softly, his thumb brushing her hand. Are you happy? It's been a crazy 6 months, Sarah admitted. Living in the spotlight. Learning how to be a mom to a 4-year-old. But I've never been happier. She hesitated. I do miss one thing though. What's that? Making napkin rabbits. I was really good at it. Liam laughed a deep, genuine laugh that made nearby diners smile. Well, he said, signaling the waiter, a young, nervous man who looked exactly like Sarah had 6 months earlier. I think you have a lifetime appointment as chief rabbit maker of the Sterling household. He glanced at Noah. Champagne, Liam said. And a bowl of ice cream for the gentleman in the booster seat. Yes, sir. As the waiter walked away, Liam looked at Sarah, really looked at her. The tragedy that had brought them together had softened into something stronger. They weren't just co-parents anymore. They were something else entirely. And this time, it was real. It had grown into a love that was fierce, steady, and deeply protective. Sarah, Liam said, his voice dropping, quieter but heavier. I don't want us to just be co-parents. And I don't want you living in the guest wing. Sarah's breath caught. You saved my son, Liam continued. And then you saved me. You're the missing piece, Sarah. You always were. He didn't pull out a ring, not yet. That would have felt rushed, too public, too staged. Instead, he pulled out the silver locket. He'd had it polished. I put a new picture in it, he said softly. Sliding it across the table. Sarah opened it. Inside was a photo of the 3 of them, Liam, Sarah, and Noah, taken in the garden the week before. They were muddy, laughing, completely unguarded. It's perfect, she whispered. So are we. Liam said. Noah looked up from his drawing. Mama, Daddy, look, he said proudly. The rabbit has a family now. Sarah leaned over to see it. A big rabbit. A medium rabbit. And a little rabbit holding paws. Double quotes. Yes, baby, Sarah said, tears of joy filling her eyes. He finally does. And that is the incredible story of how a single act of kindness by a waitress unraveled a billionaire's darkest secret. It reminds us that a mother's instinct is stronger than any DNA test, and that sometimes the family we need is the one we least expect. Jessica believed money could buy her a place in the world. She ended up with nothing. Dr. Holloway thought he could play God. He ended up behind bars. And Sarah, she went from serving the table to sitting at the head of it, proving that a good heart is the only true wealth. If this story touched your heart, give this video a big thumbs up. It really helps the channel grow and lets me know you want more stories like this. What would you have done if you were in Sarah's place? Would you have forgiven the doctor? Tell me in the comments below. And don't forget to subscribe and ring the notification bell so you never miss a daily dose of drama, karma, and true love. Thanks for watching, and I'll see you in the next one.